Okay, man, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Now, come on. Now.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome back to a long overdue episode.
Yep, episode 3. Coming at you.
3.
New
is the
location.
magic number.
Is it? So, yeah, we moved.
We did.
That's the different atmosphere in here. And
We did. We moved in together.
yes.
We're roomies now
Yes.
and podcast partners.
Yes.
So that's fun.
Lots of time.
Lots of time to do this. Not really, but
Well, no. I mean, like, lots of time together. And not in a bad way. I
No.
really like it.
yes. Anyway, yeah, so we have some cool stuff to talk to you guys about today. We've further gotten into our love for conspiracy theories while we've been here, which weird to do when you move out alone, but you know, they're not too creepy. They're just, they make you wonder about
Ponder.
life. And
Reflect.
yes, reflect.
What is possible?
What is possible? What have people done? But we will start you guys with our
Typical
opening, yes. And for our drink, we just went to the winery near our place, and it is called the Boston Winery. It is, what we're drinking is a rosé. It's called Bread and Roses. I am not a huge fan of rosé, but I actually really like this one. It's probably because it's a little sweeter than normal
Yep.
rosé, I would say. It's 12% alcohol volume. That's pretty good for wine. It's pretty standard. They make it there, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's like a family-run winery, like home to Boston. So that's awesome. We love supporting local businesses and all that good stuff,
yeah.
especially in the situation we're in. And we were very safe when we went. We wore our masks. We sat outside.
We made a reservation.
It was actually pretty late when we went too, so there weren't a lot of people there, which was actually
Yeah.
really nice. And it's right on the water, which was awesome. And we had a great time. And they have really good wine. So
Oh,
I
yeah,
would
it was a deal.
suggest taking
6 bottles for $100.
I suggest
and we
checking
did
it out. I think you can order it online. So anyway, yeah. Now that brings us to our next opening segment for our tarot reading. It's been a while. I'm excited.
Whose turn is it to shuffle?
I don't remember. I think it's yours.
Okay. Nope, I'm too far into the deck. Oh God, what are my hands? Okay. You just wanted to touch them, get your energy in.
Mhm.
I'm
Or a mixture.
I'm trying to get it. Oh no. You went last.
Yep.
I don't mean that in a bad way. They're not upright and they mean
I
something.
shuffle weird.
No, that's like what normal people do and
Yeah.
you're supposed to do, but I know
There's
that
one
I
that's
don't.
not.
Thank you. Wait, no, leave it upside down.
Sorry.
Fate wants it upside down.
Okay.
If I missed one, there's a reason.
Okay.
Sorry, no, that I didn't mean to be like, no, it just came to me. I was like, no, yep, that's the one. Do you think that's just the card?
I don't know. Do you have to shuffle?
Yeah, but like that was a weird occurrence.
It was.
Just sitting here with my cards. It's like really weird to shuffle them because you gotta. Okay.
They're large.
The Star. Well, that's different from the Devil. So, ooh.
I'm not. Okay. Continue.
Essentially, faith, hope, and prosperity. That's how I feel about this place. And I have faith that we're gonna have some interesting conversations today and that I'm gonna like this one.
We both have definitely been prospering with our intellectual knowledge.
Oh yeah, we've been having some riveting debates.
Deep conversations.
Mm-hmm.
We both just finished The Good Place also.
Literally like 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, well, I finished it a week ago, but
I
Devyn
watched it in
decided
4
to
days.
finish it very quickly. So with that being over, we can get into our riveting topic of conspiracy theories today. we're not covering obviously all of the conspiracy theories ever because there's so many out there, but we're gonna focus on some
Cold War.
mind control, Cold War ones that involve like mind control-esque situations.
This is the sampler platter of conspiracy theories.
Yes, and they're also like very, very believed to be true, and one of the ones we're going to talk about has been confirmed.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So, with that said,
we're going to start with the one that is very widely known about. It is MK Ultra, and it was an operation run by the CIA where they were experimenting with LSD. So some facts about that. They did it to break individuals down during interrogation. It started in 53, ended in 73, so it was going for 20 years. And it's kind of known as like what started LSD. But in related story is that in 1951, in a small town in France, the Pont Saint-Esprit, there was a ergot poisoning in the water, and people started having like hallucinations. One man jumped off a building because he thought he could fly, and the chemical compound that makes that so wild and gave them that reaction is also it's like LSD.
The hallucinogen in LSD.
So people think maybe we were experimenting and poisoned the water, and then other people think that it just gave us the idea.
Yeah, it would be hard to make it all the way to France from here.
It was like during World War II, so we were there.
We were there. Okay, never mind. Take that statement back.
But eventually, President Gerald Ford did a commission, usually called the Rockefeller. I can't say
Rockefeller.
It. Yes, I can't have the R in there. It doesn't come out right. The
Rockefeller.
I can't do
There's
it.
no R there.
Rockefeller Commission on CIA activities. So it was like a review of what they'd been doing, and what they'd been doing was literally dosing each other, strangers, like unwitting participants. I mean,
anyone they could pick up off the street, they would dose with LSD. Not as much as like that, but like literally.
No, they wouldn't even pick you up. They would give it to you in public and then sit and watch.
That's what I meant. Like not literally that, but like anyone that they could find and like easily do it unknowingly also, they would do it. Yep. And that is fucking insane.
They used to do it to each other at work.
Yeah.
Like there's tons of stories of people talking about it, and like they'll just dose a pot of coffee and then everyone
and I mean like we're definitely at like a disadvantage because we don't know what it's like for like a new drug to really come out and like everyone to be like, whoa,
I feel like
what
Molly
does this
is
do?
like that.
Yeah, I guess.
We were like young though.
We were pretty young.
Yeah, we were pretty young.
But should not have known about that.
Thank you, Tyga.
Anyway, I guess like they're like, whoa, it's a new drug. What does it do? And like, I mean, maybe doing it to your knowing coworkers and each other.
Yeah, like
I would see that being okay with the CIA because they do a bunch of weird stuff, but they fucking did it to people who didn't know it was happening to them.
I had no idea. Can you imagine like not knowing anything
that
about hallucinogens?
Dosed
and you're just
LSD.
Like at a bar trying to meet a nice girl. It's the 50s, so you're at the
sudden,
sock hop.
The bar turns into an alien spaceship. Literally in your head.
And the walls start moving.
And you fall off your bar seat and then you go to the hospital.
Yep.
Anyway.
But fun fact, no one's actually ever died and like overdosed from LSD.
And they figured
there
that
was
out.
this unwitting participant who did run off of a building because he was so bewildered by what he was experiencing.
Yeah, so it's definitely not safe, so don't try this at home.
I forgot to write this down, so I have to say it now. Whitey Bulger was a part of this. A lot of the people who were involved, like, who...
They took a lot of prisoners.
Yep.
And did it.
Yep.
Because they were, like, mostly witting, too.
Yep.
Like,
yeah, they were willing. They did it to,
They were in prison. What else did they get to do?
Prisoners. Who else did they do to...
Especially, like, people who were there for life.
Like, yes. Yeah. But also, like, a lot of people who ended up being musicians, like during the 60s and 70s hippie people, were a part of the original experiments, which is really interesting. So yeah, But because of the Rockefeller Commission,
There you go.
the CIA, well, in 1973, it was getting shut down by this commission. The director of the CIA was like, destroy all the documents. So they destroyed most of them. But in 1977, there was a Freedom of Information Act filed, and a lot of the files that they did still have were given to the public. And that's when we learned the gist of what was going on. And a few more were released in 2001. But recently, in 2018, there was another declassified paper, which was a letter from a doctor who was writing about his successful experiments with implanting chips in dogs' brains and getting them to stop, come, do basic commands on command. But like not training them, putting something in their brain.
Yeah. So this is completely confirmed by like the commission, and like they found out, and it was actually told to the public, which is super rare with a lot of the shit that goes on in the government. You would agree?
Yeah, you have to know about it in order to be able to file for
but
information.
It just so happened that he decided to do a commission of that day. Like, there's a lot of times that they don't find things like that.
Well, the CIA
and now things are hiding a little bit better.
We're gonna talk more about the CIA.
Yeah, they have no regard for morals when they choose their situations.
I'm just gonna. But the mind control thing brings us to our next conspiracy theory, but this is, I believe, might be confirmed. We'll fact check that.
We're unsure, but
it is known as Project Artichoke. I'm like 95% sure. But it's Project Artichoke, and it was a CIA project that was specific to finding out interrogation methods that could get a person to unwittingly, unknowingly kill someone. I've heard of this referred to as the Manchurian Candidate. I have not read it yet. But I think of it as clips of like the classic brainwashing where they're holding people down with their eyelids open, like showing flashes of pictures that they want them to think until they break down. They were so they're trying to make assassins who don't know they're assassins and just get activated occasionally and turn into like killer robots and then go back to life. Pretty weird, but the experiments were done by the CIA's Office of Scientific Intelligence, and it started on August 20th, 1951. And not too much is known about that. Like, that's kind of it. People have stories, but that's what Project Artichoke was. Yeah, basically the gist of most of these is that they're mostly CIA-backed or Army-backed via the Department of Defense. And DOD! A lot of their documents are really hard to get a hold of. So, like, there's so much speculation because, like, there's no one really to confirm what's going to happen unless you get the president at the time and place to do a commission right then and there before they can destroy the documents. But this is going to start getting more interesting here. We're going to talk about another related mind experiment from the CIA, currently known as Project Stargate. And like all the ones that we're going to talk about now, like from this point on, basically stem from the creation of MKUltra, and it's just it's basically an idea that they didn't stop this. Like, they were told to, but they just learned how to do it in different ways and separate it and keep it going. Because honestly, once you discover the shit that they discover, and that, like, people of power are not going to stop. Yeah. They're just going to hide it better. Mm-hmm. So, now, Project Stargate comes in. She just learned a lot about this, so I'm going to give you the stats, then we're going to talk about it a little more. Project Stargate was established by the U.S. Army in 1978 in Maryland, and it was created to investigate psychic phenomena in U.S. Agents in different branches of the military. If they kind of had weird things going on in certain tests they were taking, they would pull them for experimenting, and eventually it went past just using people who were agents of the government in some way, and they were looking for normal psychics. Like, they had psychic scouts. But they were investigating their psychic phenomenon. So it's remote viewing. And astral projecting is what it's commonly referred to now, and it is slightly related to something we did in episode 1. That's a smaller version of astral projection. You don't really have as much control, but essentially think of Eleven in Stranger Things and how she could find anyone. That's what they were trying to do with this, was to use psychic people's minds to locate individuals that the government was looking for.
Yeah. And, like, that sounds really bad, but, like, this whole thing is terrible, but they also did this, like, in a hostage situation. I just recently listened to a podcast about this, but I forget where it was, forgive me, but they had a situation where there was an overtake of a section, like a little squad of the U.S. Army, and they were in a different country, and they had 2 of these people that they strongly believed could
they were
astral
project, but these people were mostly telepathic.
But they went into the bunker.
Yes, like they would astral project.
They were astral projecting. Like, they were able to give them, like, basic blueprints of the building they were being held in and who was where, and, like, they helped a lot of missions that way, go better than they would have if they couldn't have seen the building, I guess, the space before. But so they took, like Devyn said, they took people after, like, a little bit of an investigation. They took people that weren't in the Army that, like, they could find anywhere that said they had, like, any kind of connection. Like, like, people...
It wasn't people volunteering. It was people, like, getting people.
Yes. But, like, people that you could find with, like, any kind of connection.
Yes.
Like,
but it wasn't...
Like, another...
It wasn't known
level.
as the U.S. Army, doing the experiment. They were a bunch of different projects, like, all over the country.
Yes.
And in 1991, people just collected them and named them Project Stargate together. Yeah. So nobody really knew this was going on in a lot of places.
And they found, like, 2 people that could do it very, very well. I'm blanking on their names right now. We'll have to, like, fact check and put them down here. But they basically figured out that they could astral project because they had been experimenting on them. Like, she said, if you've seen Stranger Things, it's very similar to Eleven's experience that you see in the lab, where she's, like, in a room and they're trying to make a cat make a noise in another room and she has to, like, try to hear it. So they do a lot of tests like that, and then they ask him if he can find coordinates to this place, just to see if he can. Like, they give him some coordinates and they say, what is here? And then they do it, and it's like, he gives them there's a flagpole, a circle, and, like, a cul-de-sac, basically, and a house. And
can I give you a side?
Yeah.
The plural of cul-de-sac is cul-de-sac.
Huh, that's weird. And basically, they think he's wrong because the guy said he gave him coordinates where there, like, shouldn't be anything. Like, there should be nothing there, and he's, like, making all this up. So one of the other scientists is skeptical, and he thinks that this guy is right. So he goes there, he finds nothing, and then drives, and he sees what other than a flagpole, a cul-de-sac, and a little cabin. And it's literally insane. So he's like, whoa. So then they end up asking him to go into other places, and then they find another guy who can see it even better for some reason. Like, he's even more advanced, and, like, they ask him to go into this abandoned, what is the fucking word for it? It's an army base. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. Fort. That's what I was looking for. It's like an abandoned, so they asked them to look into this, like, old abandoned army base. It's, I think, maybe an Air Force base, but they asked them to, like, go downstairs into the classified gate where, like, nobody else could have even, like, had access to. So the first guy tries it, he's pretty spot on. The other guy tries it, he literally has everything right, like, down to, like, the chips in the wall. And so that's how they ended up starting using them for all of those hostage situations.
Yeah. People are weapons now.
Yeah.
And then I guess the movie The Men Who Stare at Goats and the book are based on this project, and I believe that's a George Clooney film. Might have to watch that. Speaking of, I cannot remember his wife's maiden name. I tried, and I can't.
It's Alma.
That's her first name is Amal, but
That's what it is.
I don't know what her last name was.
Oh.
It was like we all used to know it, now we don't. She's just Clooney.
Yeah, I don't know.
So.
But, yeah, we'll go back in time a little bit again. Now it's time to talk about the Philadelphia experiment.
We might have to like create a timeline.
Yeah, we might have to. We're going back and forth a lot in this time period. But basically, the Philadelphia experiment is yet again another branch of the army, branch of the military trying to get ahead. So basically, with all of this going on, everyone hears of things going on when you're in power and you talk. You're like, hey, I hear the Air Force just did this experiment. Why don't we try something like that?
What are you saying right now?
I don't know, like why would the Navy try, you know?
The Navy did this because they were literally at war and they kept getting their U-boats sunk.
I know, but
So
like you don't like think, oh, let's make ourselves invisible unless you've heard like of.
Oh, I guess that's true.
You know what I mean?
I do guess that's true. Okay.
Like, so basically, yeah, we were in the middle of a war during this time period. This happened in 1943 is the time that it is disputed to be. Some people believe that it happened in August. Some people say it happened in October, but the main premise is that it's 1943. The World War II ended in what, 46? 45?
I think.
One of those years. So we were still in World War II. We were getting completely demolished. Like our ships were getting demolished by German
boats.
U-boats while we were trying to get to the UK, to our allies. So the Navy says we should try to make ourselves invisible to radar so that they can't find us, or invisible in general. So they just take a stab at this idea. And basically this guy named Al Bielek, or Edward Cameron, as you may see him called if you look this up, he was studying at Princeton, then he was doing his PhD at Harvard, and then he was doing some more education work at Princeton when this guy, John Van Neumann, came to find him and asked him to work on this project. So it was these two like astrophysicists that they had gotten to work with the Navy, kind of weird. So they're like, what are we doing? So they got recruited to basically try to make the ship invisible. And they tried it before. They did it in Philadelphia. They tried it in September of 1940 in Brooklyn. And the big differences between when they tried it in Brooklyn and versus when they did it in Philadelphia is that it was a smaller ship. There was no one on board at all. And they successfully made the ship disappear and reappear in front of their eyes. There's like, Al Bielek will attest to this, no doubt. And I think, I don't know, like a lot of people have said that like the Brooklyn one was real. I think like it's more, they have taken more responsibility for it because it was successful.
No one was
yes.
harmed.
When then you get into the Philadelphia experiment where they try this again and they want to see if they can use this actually in action. So they use it on the USS Eldridge. And they do it in the Philadelphia, a harbor in Philadelphia. I don't know. We didn't write it down.
Wasn't it? What?
No, they were supposed to leave on that. They weren't supposed to use the battleship. Okay. They were going to disappear in. Anyway, I forget exactly what harbor it was, but they tried it. The two scientists were actually on board, but and so was like a small crew.
On
and
the
they
first
did it.
one?
No.
Okay.
This is
sorry
talking about Philadelphia.
Sorry.
Now.
Okay, I just.
But so they tried it, and they're in Philadelphia, and they try it again. They want to try to see if they can use it actually like in a war situation. So they put a crew on. They use a huge ship called the USS Eldridge. It's like a really nice new military ship. And the two scientists actually end up being on board, but they weren't supposed to. And they were brothers, the Cameron brothers.
It gets interesting here.
Yes. So there's actually a witness.
I wonder if we can hear the train.
You definitely can. So there's actually a witness to this entire experiment in Philadelphia as well. And he goes by the name of Carl M. Allen. And he also goes under the pseudonym of Carlos Miguel Allende, which you'll hear interchangeably. But he says he saw a fog of green, blue mist, something fall over the ship before it disappeared. So it successfully disappeared, and as it did, these two scientists, I guess, were able to jump ship before it happened.
What the hell is that green mist?
Yeah, so they were obviously knowledgeable. They were like, yeet, that doesn't look the same as Brooklyn. We're off of this thing.
The random mist descent makes people think maybe aliens.
Yeah.
Because they have aliens have a history of stopping nuclear bomb tests and such. And if you're gonna tell me aliens aren't real, bye.
But a lot of people who have attested that aliens are real say that they have been trying to help humans stop where we need to stop. Stop trying to destroy ourselves, basically, if we go too far. And a lot of people think this might have been the too far, because essentially they were trying to go invisible and or teleport. It's not confirmed exactly which one, but that was the basis of it. So they were you're probably not supposed to do that. That's what a lot of people think. So anyway, it caused a lot of people to be confused, and this guy Carl was blinking and was where did the ship go? But the water still looked like it was there. So essentially people assumed that it went invisible. But when it came back less than a minute later, he heard whelps and screams and blood-curdling screams from the ship. And when he when people discovered the ship, people were literally morphed to the base, to the walls, to the steering wheel, to everything. Anything that anyone was near, they were morphed to. A lot of people, there were maybe a few survivors, but a lot of them went a little insane, obviously for a plethora of reasons.
Oh, good word.
Yeah, and then some people actually had to have their appendages amputated, but then a lot of people actually died from this experiment. So the government will not take any responsibility for this.
So
it's
this
not
isn't
confirmed at all. But essentially that's what people have conspired happened, and that's the truest story that Devyn and I believe, and it's taken from a few conspiracy theories that we've heard, and we have pieced it together to make the most believable story to us, basically.
Yeah.
So and then the reason I mentioned that Ed and his brother Duncan, Ed, who will later go by Al Bielek in his life, jumped off the ship, is because they show up later in the next conspiracy theory we're going to talk about, which is Montauk. And do you have anything to say before we start?
Well,
a little interjection.
Ed becomes Al Bielek at Montauk.
Yes.
In 53,
yes.
He was changed and regressed. So he became a young boy and put into Al Bielek's maybe already living body, maybe not, who knows. But that was 1927.
Yeah,
and
because essentially the government didn't want him around to be spreading that he worked on this project.
Yes.
Is what people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the Montauk Project is the basis for the TV show Stranger Things. It's also located at Camp Hero
In Long Island, New York.
It's right on the tip.
Mm-hmm.
And it's heavily related to the Philadelphia experiment. When we tried to take notes on Montauk, it's half notes on Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So it's a story.
But, so basically it gets more investigated because of the witness Carl M. Allen, and because he comes forward to an author named Morris P. Jessup.
He writes him a letter /note,
Yes.
Real deep throat style.
Yes, and it essentially spells out that Jessup he had previously said that we need to look into extraterrestrials more.
Like, he wrote the book,
more.
The Case for the UFO,
Yeah.
which is very heavily known in the ufology community.
Yes. So, Alan decided, he went under Allende, the pseudonym, and he said, you do not need to study extraterrestrials any more than you guys already do. Basically saying, like, that your book is wrong, we do not need further study. And then he, obviously, like anyone else, would just ignored him. He's like, this guy's crazy.
Of course there's
And he kept making innuendos to the Philadelphia experiment as well. He kept saying that it's real. Like, he kept, like, just being like, I witnessed this, it's real. It's a sign of aliens. He heavily believed that green mist was also aliens, I think. But there's also a theory that he himself was an alien, because or that he was working with them because he sent the, like, naval office a letter or an annotated book of Jessup's, like, spelling out the incorrect things that they got about aliens, and, like, basically talking about humans in a way that only someone who wasn't of the human species would talk about.
I remember this. This was freaky.
So they were freaked out.
It seemed like a field study book of UFOs comparing a work of, like, notes to fact, like their fact.
They were basically, like, saying, you got this wrong, you need to not do this, like, this
humans actually do this is kind of how it was written.
As if they were observing humans, not as if they were human themselves, which is super weird. Obviously the naval office got freaked out, so they called the author of the book up, and they're like,
what the fuck,
what is this? And he compares it to Allende's writings that he has gotten, and that's how they find out that he is one of 3 writers that they think also might just be him and trying to write different handwritings. But so Jessup gets really into what's going on now because he's like, okay, this is real. They sent it to the naval office. This is a lot. So he goes into this, tries to figure out a lot, and he was actually on the phone with somebody before he died, or maybe not on the phone because this is 1959. Does they have
the phones? Did they have phones in 1959?
Okay, anyway, so someone had talked to him, like, really recent to, like, very close to his death, his time of death, a few days prior, and he had told them that he had figured out a crap ton of stuff about the Philadelphia experiment, about everything Allende had said, and he was going to go to the naval office to take it to them. He never got the chance because he was found in a park in 1959 with a ventilator of a, what are those things called? Generator. A hose to a generator hooked up to his window, and, like, the opening of it was stuffed. So he died before he ever got to tell anyone, like, what he discovered. And that could have been a lot. But essentially, people think he also discovered what they were doing at Montauk. So there was this guy named Preston
Nichols.
Maybe. And he wrote this book that we decided to buy so we can read more about it.
God bless Amazon.
Yes, we love it.
Shop small, but God bless Amazon. Am I right?
R.I.P. to Preston Nichols, because he just died in 2018, and that's sad. Because he was actually, like, really smart and really knowledgeable, it seems. And
I hope he's in a better place using his energy.
Yeah, from what we have
seen
of him. We've watched a few videos of him talking. But he basically took this job as an electrical engineer near the old Montauk Project site. He did not know that he was near the old Montauk Project site. He was just a old engineer wanting a job.
And when is this? Is this like the 80s?
It's like 70 something. Yeah.
So the base is
it's
shut
like
down.
mid-70s. Yeah, the base is long gone, like shut down, but not being used.
The military's not supposed to be there
secure
anymore. It's not a fort, an active fort. It's not an active fort.
They're not actively doing the experiments anymore. So he works with a few other physicists, and he's actually, like, super into psychic and psyches from for some reason. He just like could never explain it. And they always feel this weird vibration around them at a certain time.
A disruption in the cosmic field.
Yeah, they all feel like overwhelmed in their heads, or like they just all like feel it. And it's like contested amongst the group, so he starts to explore it. He goes there and it's like heavily guarded for some reason. Like it's supposed to be completely
like the
like
military
deserted.
is not here anymore.
Yeah.
Why are you so?
And they learn it's a experiment or like some kind of base for the FAA, and which doesn't really make any sense because the way he describes it is the technology they were using would have been outdated for the FAA at that time, so it didn't really make any sense at all that they would be there. And so he kind of gives up after that because he's like, I can't get in.
And there's this huge thing on top of a radar tower, like this.
Yeah,
huge,
we'll put a picture of the Montauk location in after because it's very bizarre that they would just leave the entire thing there and still not say that this happened. But anyway, so somebody calls him when he is like 10 years later and says, hey, this base is completely abandoned now, you can get in, you can hop the fence, nobody's guarding it anymore. So
obviously he does.
He does, yeah. And
Good
then
man.
he meets the caretaker and they like tell him he can go and take a bunch of stuff if he wants, because he's an engineer. He's like, ooh, free gadgets, let's
they
go.
act like they know him.
Yes.
Right?
Not
that one? Okay.
But when he goes there, he finds this man who's been living there for a year, who, like, ever since it got shut down because he's homeless, and he immediately recognizes Preston. Like, out of nowhere, Preston has no idea who this guy is. And this happens as he meets people throughout the base. Like I said, there's a caretaker who had been there for a while, and they all know him for some reason. And then people come visit him throughout that. They remember him. They remember being there. It's really weird. Duncan Cameron comes. He remembers being there. It's all a bizarre chain of events that it's just going to take too long to get completely into. But basically, as exploring, he uncovers this nameplate he sees on like a nice desk in an office, and it's his name, and it says like assistant director or something like that. And he like has a like whoosh of his memories of being in this experiment and in like
being a part of what happened there
in that place,
and memories of it when he had not previously had those memories.
Yes. So basically it kind of all comes back to people trying to experiment with mind control and with drugs and how it can affect people. And there's a lot of things that people say had come out of Montauk, and there's just a plethora of other things that could have come out of it. One of the biggest ones is the Lost Boys, I think it's called. The Montauk Boys, maybe it's called. The Lost Boys is literally the thing from Peter Pan.
I thought you were talking about like Paradise
it's
Lost.
I think it's called the Montauk Boys, but correct me if I'm wrong later. But it's this army of essentially young men that they recruited, not by like their own will, mind you.
They clearly have
abducted these people.
Technology because
they abducted these people and essentially broke their will by any means possible. They did this with experimenting on them.
They successfully did the thing, the Project Artichoke, where they brainwashed them to like kill. Like they didn't kill people, but they could.
But they essentially
and not remembered it.
People think that they turned them on when they needed them, and it was like you would see like literally an army for one
a
being.
Sleeper cell.
Yes. So people think that this sleeper cell has been activated in a few of them, like throughout the last 20, 30 years,
like
40 years.
Now?
Yeah. That like a lot.
Like
some
people,
people think that some
the
terror.
Unabomber, is that probably?
I don't know,
one
but
of them?
people think that some terrorist
he
attacks
did the
are.
LSD experiments. I think the
People
Unabomber.
think, people think that some
Wait.
terror.
I get the Unabomber and the Oklahoma City bomber really confused. Maybe I'm wrong. Sorry. I just didn't want to be wrong, and no, I'm sorry.
But people think that a lot of terrorist attacks are them, and like especially like the people who think that like the government sometimes conjures up terrorist attacks. It's like
false flag
a very
operations.
good, easy way for them to not be actually responsible for it because they can play it off on these people. So that was one like outcome of Montauk, and there's so many other ones. Do you want to talk about another one?
I don't really know as much right now, but I do think that I found this one really far-fetched, you know, experimenting on humans up until today in the 80s in a base in Long Island, but
It wasn't until the 80s.
well, I don't know dates, but we watched this documentary that we paid for.
You think that any of the other ones are real? This one's literally in 78.
I definitely believe in this. I definitely believe in this. Philadelphia, I'm on the fence about. Montauk, I'm closer to believing.
Yeah, I think that it's older than you think. I mean, he like literally.
I mean, I agree, but like, if Philadelphia is real, it was aliens. It was the aliens. But can I insert my boyfriend George T in here doing it was the aliens gif. But sorry. But Montauk, I do think it's real. Like, I think it's very easy for people to. We watched this thing, and essentially they used to experiment on people around this time in prisons, like very inhumanely. And I believe that the secrecy of this operation, coupled with the fact that MK Ultra had such a blatant disregard for people's well-being and autonomy, that I think it's possible, like,
Yeah.
to take them and to brainwash them a little. Like, I don't know, has anybody ever lost time? And I don't mean like blackout, I mean like not remember what you're doing and not be able to, no matter how hard you try and you weren't drinking.
I don't know. One of the other ones I wanted to talk about though was like the whole reason that it got shut down, and that like he essentially got his mind erased, and that like the reason that like he left. But basically when he came back, one person was like, the director left when an experiment was going on, everything went bad, and then it got abandoned. And that was really vague. But then when he got his memory back, he remembered they had this man, I think it was Keith Allen, but I'm not sure by reading these names, I think it was. He was essentially the one that they had the most success with, doing all of these experiments, trying to telepathically read people's minds, trying to project themselves somewhere.
He was the most psychic one.
Yeah,
among the tested.
He was like, yeah, he was their diamond, their amazing person.
He's their
So,
11.
yeah,
Success story.
essentially. So basically they wanted to see how far they could test this and see like if he could conjure things like just from his mind. So they asked him to do this like a few times, and it was like pretty scary the first couple of times. So they were all on the fence about it. Nichols had a really bad feeling about doing it again, and they did it the like last time, and he projected out like a legit monster out of his mind.
The Demogorgon.
Yes, basically the Demogorgon in Stranger Things is what he says happened.
Demodogs.
And it started killing so many people in the lab, and they like had no idea how to shut it off. They started by trying to unplug everything, all the electricity, because it was feeding off the tower that we're going to show you. It was feeding off all of that power and his mind. So basically it took over the guy, and like it was going to shit. So Preston was like, shit, this was my bad feeling. He tries everything, he unplugs everything, and then it's not going away. So he decides to he decides to go try to cut the wires to the huge power source, and the wires are like this thick, so he has to torch them off to shut it down. And he torches a bunch of them, and he finally gets the power to go off, and the monster like essentially disappears or like disintegrates or something. And forgive me, I have no idea what happened to the guy, but after that, it's really vague what happened. And then you have Preston come up and figure out that he was a part of that. But also, you can, like, when people have gone back, you can see the marks from the torch marks on the wire, where the wires were, and like on the wall. So, like, it's weird that, like, some part of that story can be real. So, like how much, how much can be real, you know? It just...
Related to Project MK Ultra, it was at first a scientific experiment, but I just made Sammie watch the drug history episode. But essentially, there's this dolphin thing with LSD and inappropriate dolphin contact. And the U.S. government ended up funding some of it. And that, and like MK Ultra, it's like we have spent so much time and so much resources working on developing this technology. There is no way we just gave up and abandoned it. And I do believe that, like, some of the stuff they do is so horrible we don't even want to imagine it. Like, I mean, we would rather not remember. But
people take real things and spin them. Like, obviously, people take conspiracy theories and spin them even more. But that's why we tried to take as much stuff as we believed could be true and give it to you.
This is just our opinion.
Yeah, it's just our opinion. I mean, you're going to find a lot more out there if you actually look into any of these.
Well, actually, it's kind of hard to go on Reddit.
Yeah, but, like, I mean, like, a lot of different, like, versions of the story. Yeah. I mean, like, I hadn't even heard this one until, like, today. But they're really interesting to think about. And just like to your point, like, I think honestly all of these start off with being kind of innocent, not totally, because some of them start off with the army literally wanting to weaponize people, but
it's
some of them, they start off with like but like literally genuinely curious scientists who just want to like try to figure shit out.
Honestly, can I just like, I do not think that it is ethical to kind of experiment on humans.
No,
like,
but I mean, the army...
like, listen to me.
No, you're not listening to me. I said it starts off with an innocent scientist who wants to try to figure out something, and then the government finds wind of it and is like, hey, here's all these people you can experiment on.
Do you know who, not the Philadelphia experiment, but most of these were started and heavily involved with, like, from Nazi scientists that the U.S. Project Blue Book, they took, or Paperclip.
The U.S. took
Project
them
Paperclip.
here.
The U.S. took them here, the scientists, and used their science, like their scientific knowledge, to experiment on people and continue some of the experiments they did.
The Nazis.
No, I know, but they took the Nazis, is what I'm saying. They took the Nazi scientists, and they're the ones who did this shit. And that's why I have a problem, is you're a Nazi and you're experimenting on humans. You are a bad person.
But that's what I'm saying, too, is that, like, as easily as the U.S. took them and influenced them to do it on people for them, how easy do you think it was for the German, like, people to do that as well? Like, it starts off with someone being innocent and learning, and then the government finds them.
But what, like Germany was never innocent. They wanted to see what would happen if they tortured a twin to another one. Like, that's the thing.
Germany
is like
was never innocent. You're gonna say all Germans were bad.
I mean, like, Nazi Germany was never concerned with the lives of a lot of groups of people, but mainly Jewish people, and they would experiment on them mercilessly. And a lot of them ended up coming here and experimenting on our citizens, and they don't have a moral compass, but they were allowed to experiment on us. And that's why I'm like, that's
who
scary.
Allowed them to do that?
Our government. Yeah, that's scary as fuck. Yeah, they brought them here. Like, they just confirmed that the U.S. brought Nazi scientists to the U.S. and they worked on the Manhattan Project.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, is like, the U.S. government decided to fucking do this shit.
Yes.
So, like, it could start with or Preston B. Nichols trying to get electrical engineer.
I feel like if
he wanted to disprove it too, which is also a fun fact that I found out today, was that Preston B. Nichols, he decided to go into that experiment. Also, he remembered trying to disprove that we could even do it, like that humans could even have any telepathic abilities. He didn't think it was possible. And the government was like, nah, you're wrong. Keep doing it.
We'll
provide you more
people
to turn into vegetables.
Like, I definitely believe that there were telekinetic, psychic individuals working for the government. I definitely believe they were successful in some ways.
I absolutely believe that they've gotten advice from
From aliens?
Extraterrestrials.
You do?
Yeah.
You think we've gotten advice?
Not like advice, but like I think that like what
I think Dwight
Allende-
Eisenhower was.
I think Allende was right in some of the things he said, where like he said something like your experiments already have extraterrestrial technology in them, or like something like that, where like you wouldn't be able to have gotten this far
without
us
and
helping you.
In the Philadelphia experiment, especially in like
And I
1943.
think, there's probably many ways where they could be around. And
I believe the ancient aliens theory, the ancient astronauts. So I believe they've always been here, but I do believe they've explicitly made contact with their government since this, like,
well, I think they're smart enough to know who to talk to.
I think they had a meeting with one of the presidents and he created a protocol going forward. And I heard about it on an episode of Ancient Aliens.
That is a good assumption, and they would maybe...
They, like, classified a lot of the stuff going forward, but they made it... And we had this conversation, is like, why wouldn't aliens tell us that they're here? And it's like, oh, because they're experimenting on us. Like, you know what I mean? They help the U.S. by giving us technology, and the U.S. helps them by giving them test subjects, because clearly they don't care what happens to their fucking test subjects.
Yeah, that is what we've proven in this episode. The U.S. government does not care about you. Alright, well, I guess we'll see you later. We'll be reading this book in the meantime.